Welcome back, friends. Today we are going to take a look at circles, and specifically we're going to be looking for the area and circumference and using those formulas to either find the area or the circumference or finding the radius and the diameter. So I want to remind you, a circle is the set of all points in a plane that are the same distance from a point called the center. So again, the center is in the middle, absolute middle of a circle, and the radius is the distance from the center to any point on the circle. So the radius is half a circle, right? Where the diameter is the distance all the way across through the center. So the diameter is from one side of a circle to the other. And we're going to begin today looking at the circumference. And as you can see, the circumference, or what the letter C is what we use for circumference, of a circle is equal to pi times the diameter, which is d, or pi times twice the radius, r. Well, that's what the diameter is, right? The diameter is twice the radius. The radius is halfway, diameter is all the way. So when we look at these two formulas, I really want you to focus on C equals pi d. And the reason being is when you have a reference sheet for your EOCs or any type of a formula reference sheet at the high school level, the only formula you're going to see is the capital C for circumference equals pi d. They do not show both. It's also important to think about the circumference as the distance around a circle or the tracing of a circle. Circumference is really the big fancy word for finding the perimeter of a circle. So look here. We're going to first start with given the diameter. So what we're going to do is we're just going to try to find the circumference of each one of these circles that we've been given. So the C equals, I'm going to start by writing the formula. The more times I write it, the easier it is to remember. So the circumference equals pi times d. So I'm going to say, okay, so the circumference equals, now for this example, we're going to use 3.14. So 3.14 for pi times d. Now d is the diameter, and if you see here that 26 goes all the way across, so I would take 3.14 times 26, and I would absolutely type that in my calculator. 3.14 times 26 equals, it says that my circumference is equal to 81 64 circumference, and that is in meters according to my circle. So given the diameter, we just plug in 3.14 for pi, and then for the diameter, well, it gave us the diameter, so we just put that in for d and we multiply. Now, what have we been given the radius? Well, we're going to use the exact same formula we were using a second ago. We're going to say, you know what, this is the one they give us, so circumference equals pi d. So the circumference equals, for pi, I'm going to type in 3.14. And for the diameter, well, they didn't give me the diameter. See, they only gave me half. They gave me 6. Well, the diameter is the radius times 2. So it'd be 6 times 2. So that would be 12. So I'm going to take this times 12. So 3.14 times 12. And it looks like my circumference is 37 68/100ths, and this would be in feet. Now we have one more circumference question here. It says, given the circumference. Well, if we think about that, if we've been given the outside of a circle, what I can find from that is the diameter or the radius. So I'm going to use my formula. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to say, well, C equals pi d. I'm going to write it. The circumference, it tells me, is 37.68, so I'm going to write that. 37.68 equals, now I know what pi is. Pi is 3.14, and that's multiplied by d. Now if I want to know what d is, well, attached to d is 3.14 by multiplication, so I would just divide both sides by 3.14. And we get, well, 37.68 divided by 3.14 is 12. So, okay, so 12 equals D, which is exactly what we had on the problem before. But again, we're thinking backwards. So if I know the diameter, sometimes they'll ask for the diameter. Sometimes they'll ask me for the radius, and I have to be careful. If I know the diameter, I can find the radius. The radius is halfway. So if I wanted to know the radius, I would say, well, the radius is half of 12, which is 6. So read carefully when you are working with your questions. Do they want me to find the circumference? And if so, did they give me the diameter or the radius? Because I need to know which one I'm working with. If they gave me the circumference and they want me to work backwards, I'm going to plug in the circumference and then I'm going to divide by the pi to find the diameter. Read carefully. Would they want the diameter or do they want the radius? Those are two different things. One's halfway, one's all the way. All right, now let's take a look at area. So the area of a circle is the product of pi and the square of the radius. So in algebra, the formula is area equals pi r squared. And think of this as painting inside the circle. This is actually coloring it in. So we're going to begin by writing our formula. Area equals pi r squared. Now if we look here, this is 2.5, and it is halfway, so it is the radius. So I'm going to go, okay, so that means the area equals 3.14 times, well, that's 2.5, and I needed to take that to the square. And you can type that in your calculator exactly as it is, 3.14 times 2.5, and then raise it to the power of 2, or use that x squared button. And you will find that the area of this circle is 19.625. 19.625. This would be meters squared. As you're working, you will find that you're often asked to round these problems, so I'm going to show you an example of both. If they want it to the nearest hundredth, that means that we would need 2 decimal places, which would be 19.6. I'd look at the 2. Does the 2 stay or does it go up? Well, after the 2 is the 5, so it would go up. So 19.63 meters squared. Or they could ask me to round to the nearest tenth. Now, if I'm rounding to the nearest tenth, this would be 19. I need the 6. Does the 6 stay or does it go up? It stays, so I would just put 6. Again, you have to read carefully. They change those back and forth from time to time. Next, we're going to look at another problem. Here I've been given the diameter, so I'm using the exact same formula. Area formula does not change. Area equals pi r squared. So that means that the area is going to equal pi. We're using 3.14 today. R squared, I need the r. Now if I look here at this circle, that's 35, but the diameter is 35. Remember, that's all the way. I need the radius, which means it would be 17.5. I want half of it. 35 divided by 2 is 17.5. So I'm going to multiply this times 17.5 raised to the power of 2. And again, I'm going to let my calculator do that work. I'm going to type it in. I'll say, okay, 3.14 times 17 squared is, and I come up to the 907.46, which is inches squared here. We have one more. Here we've been given the area. When I'm given the area, that means I can work backwards and I can find, well, the formula says I can find the radius, so that's what we'll start with. So again, formula first, area equals pi r squared. I'm going to put 50 and 24 hundredths where the area is. We're using 3.14 for pi today and r squared. If I want to find the r, the first thing I want to do is get rid of that coefficient. So I'm going to divide both sides by 3.14. Well, 50.24 divided by 3.14, that would be 16 equals r squared. Remember, we divided, so those cancel. Now, how do I undo a square? Hopefully you're thinking square root. I'm going to take the square root of both sides. The square root of 16 is 4 and negative 4, but remember when we have distance, we only want the positive. We can't have a negative distance. So we're going to say that the radius is 4. Now, if they want more, if they say, you know what, I don't want the radius, I actually want the diameter, we're like, that's fine. If I know the radius, then I know that the diameter is just twice that, and 4 times 2 is 8. So today you're going to practice knowing a little bit more about diameter and radius, making sure you're using the correct ones, and you are going to find the circumference and you're going to find the area. But if they've given you the circumference and area, you're going to work backwards. So use these as examples, and good luck.